Okay, so real quick, I need you to go back in time with me and remember what happened during the first few trailers of RWBY. Yang goes to a bar owned by like the mafia or something and beats up everyone in there. Blake takes down a whole bunch of droids, part of a sophisticated security system, and then fights like a spider mech. And then RWBY solos a horde of Beowulf Grim. Why did these three attend Beacon? What on earth were they supposed to teach them there? They clearly have all the skills they need. Like, they should have gotten their huntsman licenses day one, no? Get to Weiss in a moment. But as for the other three, like, really think about it. And the thing that brought this to my attention was a video by Judgmental Critter, and they were saying that it feels like RWBY's cast hasn't really grown in power. And while I mostly agree with that, I think that the one part that I sort of disagree with was that they're like level 1 and they're still level 1. And I thought about it, and it's more like they were level 90 and now they're level 91, maybe. Seriously, if you think about it, they haven't really changed all that much in terms of combat capabilities in volume 9 versus like volume 2 or 3 or 1. Like, they're pretty much the same, right? This is kind of a problem because RWBY was initially marketed as a sort of combat Western anime, right? So it's kind of concerning that over 9 seasons, the combat capabilities of the main cast doesn't seem to have drastically improved or changed. And I don't really blame that on them because they were already kicking butts and taking names in the very early parts of the story. So where do you go from there? Let's table the Silver Eyes thing for now and focus on the combat capabilities as average huntresses, or maybe not average, but as huntresses, right? RWBY has now learned how to fight without her scythe, which, sure, great, now she's not completely useless without it, but no combat strategy really requires her to ditch her scythe. So overall, she's pretty much at the same level of strength. Yang has learned to not intentionally face tank damage in order to trigger burn, which, okay, she's fighting a little smarter now, but overall, Yang is still the same beast. And Blake has arguably gotten weaker. Does anyone remember this shiz? This aura blade slash attack that Blake used to do? Where did it go? Please come back. This was so fudging cool. Blake just doesn't use it anymore. What the heck? This could have been like the perfect thing that they show you learn at Beacon. The reason I say that this could have been the thing they learn at Beacon is because Bro uses it too against Winter. It shows that this might be a learnable ability that anyone can tap into, and yet like no one does. Why? This is like one of the perfect generic abilities that all huntsmen should have access to, right? Let's take an example like Hunter x Hunter or Naruto. Remember, RWBY was inspired by anime, so I'm allowed to do this. Both in Hunter x Hunter and Naruto, all the characters have sort of unique abilities that are special to them, but there are a set of generic abilities that everyone can tap into. For example, enhancing your senses. In Naruto, it's walking on water and jumping from treetops, right? This aura slash thing could have been the thing that you learn at Huntsman Academy. Like, imagine Ruby's twirling around her scythe, and then all of a sudden, out of one of the twirls, a Destructo Disc type attack comes flying out. Like, that could have been really cool. But no, ozpin taught them jack shiz. Remember the whole shockwave thing that Ren does to that other snake Grim? Where did that go? How is it that going to school made you lose abilities? Like, it's crazy to think about the fact that most of the combat capabilities they gain, or most of the things they learn, come from outside of school. Why does this academy exist? Yeah, I know it's to protect the relics, but at that point, the students should be getting paid. I certainly hope they're not having to pay to go to Beacon Academy. Like, if anything, Ozpin should be paying them. The two ways that they probably could have solved this is by having, for example, the generic abilities like aura arts, the shockwave attack that Ren does with his aura, and the air slash attacks that Blake does that show up like blades. That is one way that they could have shown, hey, this is what you're taught at Huntsman Academy. Another thing they could have taught is how to use glyphs. If Glenda isn't the maiden, but she can still produce glyphs, this could have been like the power set of the universe that anyone can tap into if they're taught how to, right? Even at the beginning, when the very first episode, right, when RWBY is chasing down Roman, and then Roman throws a grenade and he shoots it, and then Glenda shows up and protects RWBY and there's a glyph in the air. Like, That was the perfect moment to show us, hey, this is what you're working towards. This is the kind of power you're going to learn to tap into here. But then that shiz goes away and just doesn't come back after that fight. And we're not talking about Weiss's glyphs. We know that's a completely separate topic. I'm pretty sure anyone can learn how to use some glyphs because I recall this other time where Leo's weapon, the headmaster, the Lion Faunus headmaster of the other school, remember that guy? His weapon projects glyphs out from it. So there seems to be some way to incorporate glyphs into your weaponry. The other major thing the show probably should have done is show what a fully qualified huntsman is capable of, and especially show that that is above the rookies, right? Above what Team RWBY is capable of. Like, show us the difference between a student and a master. I'll give you an example. The giant bird grim. Remember that shiz in the episode when they're forming their teams for the first time? It takes the entirety of Team RWBY working together to bring that one bird down. Later on, we find that Maria can solo a giant bird grim. She manages to take it down all by herself, but she does seem to struggle with it a little bit. But then before that, Coco casually mows that shiz down. Like, she just shoots it out of the sky effortlessly. And Maria has silver eyes to help her out. What the heck is going on here? I may need to remind you all that Maria was seen as some sort of legendary huntress. And yet, what the heck? Like, at least hype up Team Coffee a little bit, right? Like, introduce them as like remember the big three from UA? They're like, these guys are so good, these students are so good that they already surpass most huntsmen out there, and as soon as they're fully qualified, they're gonna completely change the game or something like that. Give Team Coffee that kind of introduction. Make it make sense that these guys just tear down everything. And before any of y'all say anything, I'm pretty sure that this was not due to training at Beacon. I'm 99% certain that there is no class that teaches you how to solo and nevermore. Sorry, did I say solo? I meant butcher. You might say, okay, maybe their combat capabilities were more than enough. But there's still a whole bunch of theoretical stuff, you know, write down on paper work that they did at Beacon Academy. Maybe that's why they needed to go to a Huntsman Academy. And then I would say, need I remind you, they didn't actually complete that course. They left Beacon early after it was attacked, and yet later on, they're still granted a Huntsman license. Like, even Naruto, after the 4th grade Shinobi War, still needed to do written exams before he qualified as a Jonin. Yet we don't see that, so clearly, the written work isn't important. I realize some of you at the back may be screaming, teamwork! Teamwork! They learn to work as a team! That's why you go to an academy! Fair enough, their teamwork did drastically improve within a year of attending Beacon. They even had cool names for the combos of their abilities, which, please bring that back, that was also really cool. A bunch of cool stuff that we just lost along the way for some reason. Checkmate, Ladybug, Free the Burn, Checkmate again, I couldn't think of another one. Anyway, you get the point. So they learn to work as a team. That's why you go to Huntsman Academy, right? Except, I'd like to remind you, Pro doesn't work in a team. Maybe he's an exception. Fine, fair enough. But I'd also like to remind you that there's no guarantee these huntsmen are going to work together forever, right? It's not like these guys are going to be set in stone, this is the team forever, right? In fact, RWBY has to swap teams at the end of Volume 3 and the beginning of Volume 4 and join Jean's team. So it feels like it's more important to learn how to work with a different set of people rather than specializing in one team. And yet it seems that if you attend Beacon, you're just stuck in one team forever, which is kind of counterintuitive. Shouldn't they be mix matching and swapping the teams then in order to get you used to working with others? Even when they go to Atlas Academy and they start taking on missions, they don't work as a full group together all the time. So what gives? But the grim Smooth Milo, that's the reason why you go to Beacon Academy. You go to Beacon Academy to learn how to fight all different kinds of grims. There's so many varieties and species. You gotta master that shit. That's why you attend the academy. Chief, I don't know if you remember, but RWBY already knew how to fight a Borbatusk grim on her first day at school. And Weiss kinda seemed to know it too. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt there. Maybe Weiss didn't know. But then we run into a much bigger problem. Salem keeps making more Grimm. And also, some of the Grimm that have already existed, qualified huntsmen like Crow, don't really know of a surefire way to take them down. Remember the apathy? That seemed to catch Crow off guard. I don't think he knew how to fight that shiz, and if it wasn't for Ruby Silver Eyes, they would have died to that. So, what are we learning at this academy? Whatever we learned, it did not seem to help. There is this moment where Ruby is like, ooh, a giant mammoth Grimm. I'ma shoot it. And Oobleck's like, don't bother, you'd just be wasting your time and energy. Those Grimm are so tanky that your bullets wouldn't do much to them. Plus, they're not really a harm to humans. They're so big and so old that they've learned to not mess with humans. But then, cut to a few volumes later, and now we have to kill them because they're rampaging through the fudging city. Now, I left Weiss off this because I feel like she starts off in a kind of reasonable place, if you ignore her semblance. Because keep in mind, in one of the first few episodes, Weiss does struggle just a little bit to take down the Borbatusk that I mentioned, which is what I'd expect from a new student of like a Huntsman Academy. And also go back to when they were in the forest forming teams. At that moment, Weiss was like, I need to put my sword forward. I need to look up. I need to put my right foot forward. Not that far forward, you know, that whole thing. It very clearly seems like she's in her head, and it looks like someone who knows the steps, but doesn't instinctively flow into them. You know, something I'd expect from a student. So I feel like Weiss started off in a relatively reasonable spot where it's like, okay, I see why you attended this academy. And if we give her if we give the show the benefit of the doubt, not her, but the show the benefit of the doubt that she didn't know how to take down a Borbatusk with the soft underbelly thing, then yeah, maybe she went to Beacon to learn how to take down specific types of Grimm. And let's be honest, she did get humbled quite a bit in terms of learning how to work in a team, so Beacon did her some good there as well. They even did this whole thing where Weiss has an older version of herself, Winter, to show what she could be capable of in the future. So I feel like Weiss was done relatively well in terms of showing a student growing into a master, because Weiss does get a lot stronger over the series as well. Mainly due to her semblance, but you know, it's very clearly some growth, right? Why is the Weiss the favorite child? There's also Jean, but that doesn't quite count because we're told that Jean probably wouldn't have qualified for Beacon and he kind of cheated his way in, which really reinforces my whole idea of Ozpin's kind of running a scam here, and he wants already accomplished huntsmen and huntresses to attend the academy and, you know, protect the relics for free under the guise of educating them. In fact, I think the show shows a whole lot of growth outside of the academies. I mean, let's take a look at the villains versus the heroes. Adam and Cinder all learned their stuff from outside of an academy. Adam got to become the leader of the White Fang for a little while. Cinder got to get maiden powers. Emerald's semblance evolved to a ridiculously high level. Neo became a borderline deity with how much her semblance evolved. Guys, I think the lesson here is don't go to school. It's a waste of time and resources. Just become a villain instead. Anyway, keep it smooth. That's the sound Coco's guns make. Or Coco's gun make.